Hello, everybody. Welcome to Statistics Solutions Theory webinar, Why Theory is Important. Okay, we have a co-host on with us today in the webinar chat box. She's posting links for scheduling a free consultation for the services that we offer. We are a full service dissertation consulting service. And we have a link there that you go to our website, you can see what we offer, but also if you can make a free consult and talk to somebody specifically about what we offer, the range of services, and if that's right for you. We also have resources on our website, like sample chapters, kind of discussions of this, content that goes into the sections of the chapters of the dissertation. We have blogs on a range of topics. We also have a archive. We archive the webinars, and so we have those online that you can access, the webinar archives, this webinar as well as other webinars on again a range of topics and all the different chapters. Okay. Okay, yeah, and if you are interested in the services, just click that link, that first link there to schedule a consultation or go to the website. So today we're going to be talking about theory, how theory, what is theory? What's the role of theory in the dissertation? Why is it important? And let me get to our agenda. Okay, our overview. This is what we're going to be covering today. And we're going to have you're going to have an opportunity to ask questions at the end. We'll have a question and answer session where I'll try to answer your questions. Having said that, if you think of questions along the way as I'm presenting, feel free to jot them down, or you can even put them in the question and answer box or the chat box, but I won't get to them until the end. So I just want to let you know that. Okay. All right. So these are the sections we're going to be talking about. Let's get started. Introduction. What does theory do, right? This is kind of, theory seems to be one of the, there's a lot of components to the social sciences dissertation, methodology, and, that might be, new to you. But theory, it seems that theory is something that confuses people too. Not that people don't understand theories or what they are, but it's more of how it fits into your study and like what its role is in your study. Because obviously you're not, you're not having a theoretical discussion, right? You're studying something, and theories in there. You're not really sure. Well, why do I need a theory? What does it do? Theories do several things. They provide a framework for understanding, which that's what theories do. Theories explain things. That's why researchers, scholars develop theories. To explain things, to explain phenomena, to explain observations, to explain, whatever it happens to be. Why are people motivated to do things? Well, they develop theories about motivation, right? Different things that motivate people to act. So theories are important, for that reason, that they provide a framework for understanding, a framework for intelligibility, for explaining things. It can guide the research, right? Theories guide scientific inquiry by providing a starting point for the research and research questions and hypotheses. So, for example, if you wanted to look at college student retention, obviously you'd go to the statistics and the numbers to see, retention is a problem, but you'd also go to the theories, like retention theories, engagement theories, to kind of help guide you in like what you want to find out about retention. Like, for example, engagement theory holds that if students are engaged at certain levels, social levels, the academic levels, the institutional level, if students are engaged, at those levels at the school, they're more likely to be retained, right? So that's a good starting place. The theory can help you kind of get started, can help you guide you, where you want to go with your research. Theories also promote critical thinking. In other words, it can help you make connections between ideas that don't, maybe you're not drawing the connections between certain ideas. Theories can help you make those connections, or they can help kind of overturn maybe conventional thinking. Maybe there's a new theory or a different angle to a theory that lets you think of something in a different way. Theory also allows, and this is important, for prediction and interpretation. So in other words, theories can help us predict the relationship between variables, or help us predict outcomes or results. You can base your hypotheses on theories. The theory says that, to go back to our engagement example, students are more engaged, stay in school. And if you're studying that, if you're studying retention, then your theory, your hypothesis could be based on your theory that yes, if they are more engaged, they will stay in school, and your study is going to kind of test that theory, right? So theories allow for to make predictions, for you to kind of think about what you might expect to find, right? Because they have this kind of predictive capacity or interpretive capacity. Okay, what is theory? We talked about this a little bit just a minute ago. It's really kind of a set of ideas or concepts that explain a phenomenon, that explain something. I mean, that's really kind of at the most basic level with theories. Theories explain things, right? They help us understand things. They help us explain something. In studies, theory is usually presented, like in your study, you probably have a section called theoretical framework, right? And the theory is usually presented as a framework in that section to help understand or explain the relationship between variables, or whatever it happens you happen to be studying in that study. This is an important point, the third one. Theory is real important in its interpretive capacity and its explanatory capacity, because data, especially numbers, especially statistics, they're just numbers. They're moot, or or mute. Sorry, they're inert. They're kind of lifeless. They don't tell us anything. They don't speak for themselves, right? Numbers don't really speak for themselves. I mean, you can, have a high number and say, well, there's a high number of this. Like going back to our retention example, well, there's a high number of students who are not being retained. Okay, that's bad. Right, so that does tell you something. It tells you that retention is a problem. You're having a high number of students who are not being retained, but it doesn't explain anything, right? And that's where theory comes in. The engagement theory can say, well, these students are not being retained because they're not engaged at your college, or whatever theory you happen to use. You see what I mean? So numbers and data can only tell you so much, right? But they can't kind of explain themselves. Maybe that's a better way to put it. They can't explain themselves. Why did you get this? Well, the number's high. Okay, it tells us the number's high. Well, why is it high? Numbers and stats can't do that. That's where theories come in. Theories kind of help explain that. Okay, theory in the research process. As you go along, how does theory work into how you're moving through the research process? Well, they can serve as a guiding and interpretive lens that should contain your variables or your concepts under study. And they have the interpretive capacity to explain the results. So, looking forward to your results in chapter 4, that you're going to, once you get to your chapter 4 and you present your results, you're going to have to talk about those results in chapter 5, right? Or the discussion chapter, whatever number chapter happens to be. There's a chapter where you have to discuss your findings and what they mean. Theories help there, right? Because your theory is going to help you explain those numbers, help you explain those statistics, the relationships between variables. Because again, the numbers can't do that themselves. You need the help of theory. So along the way, the theories can help you. We talked about this, make predictions, right? When say make predictions like expected findings, hypotheses. Well, based on what the theory says, you can expect to find whatever it is that the theory holds. So the theory can help you with your expected findings, with your hypotheses. You hypothesize that you will find X because of what the theory says. Now that may not hold true, and in that case you've kind of tested the theory, and in that case it didn't. That's still fine. It still tells you something that maybe in this case the theory doesn't apply, or maybe it's not the right theory for what you studied. But it does have this predictive capacity where you can talk about what you expect to find based on what the theory says. It helps you explain observations. Same thing, observations. You make an observation about something. The theories will help you explain it, right? And it can guide your research. It can guide. It keeps you kind of on track. What does the theory say? What does the theory hold to be the case, and whatever you're looking at? So the theory can help you stay on track and not kind of go down, different kind of rabbit holes. And part of all this involves testing the theories, right? So if you're going to kind of, test the theory of engagement, you're going to study college retention, you're retaining college students, and you're going to kind of test this theory of engagement. This is a way to advance knowledge. And in some of your dissertations, you might have a section, it could be in chapter 1, or it might be like a significance section, where they want you to talk about, well, how's your study going to advance knowledge? And you're like, oh, that's a good question. I don't know. And if you go to your theory helps here, because if, say, you're going to test the theory of engagement, and like we said in the study of retaining college students, if the theory, things happen to be significant, and the theory happens to explain that, then the theory, you've confirmed that the theory works in this case. If it doesn't work, like your findings are not significant, you've shown that maybe the theory isn't right for that population for some reason, or that situation, or maybe the theory needs to be modified, right? So there's ways that you can kind of test theories to see if they hold true in whatever case it is that you're using them for whatever study or whatever you're trying to find out. If they apply, if they work, if they, the findings are significant, they, you can confirm that, and that still advances knowledge that yes, this theory still works. This theory works to explain retention, for example, or it might not. Again, and again, that's a way to advance theory, because the implications might be that we need a new theory, or we need to modify the existing theory, or we need to modify the theory for this specific population. So testing theories can advance knowledge, right? And again, it can keep you focused. Guide research, we talked about that. Keep you focused on what you're doing, so you don't kind of go down different unproductive avenues. Okay, theory and the research questions. They can help define the research questions by providing a framework for the investigation. Theories can guide the selection of variables to be studied in the research design. And what do we mean by that? Where they can help with the selection of variables? Well, let's take an example. Let's say you're studying transformational leadership, right? Well, transformational leadership has 4 components to it, and I forget what they are: idealized influence, personalized I forget them. Well, anyway, there's 4 components to transformational leadership. And that's what the instrument, whatever instrument you use, is going to focus on those. And so those components will be your variables, right? So if you're studying transformational leadership and you're using that theory, that can help determine what your variables are going to be. They will be those 4 components of transformational leadership. So the theory in quantitative studies, and we're primarily talking about quantitative studies here, because qualitative studies have something called a conceptual framework. It's very similar to a theoretical framework, but it consists of concepts instead of theories. So we're mostly talking about quantitative research here. So your theory should contain your variables, right? It should have a real relation to your variables. So it shouldn't be something you kind of pick later on and go, oh, I need a theory, I'll just pick this. And this is where people get into trouble, and they're or not trouble, but they get where their theory doesn't match or doesn't align. And your professor, your chair comes up and says, well, what does this theory have to do? How does it connect to your study? And they can't see it, and you're trying to figure it out. So your theory and your research question should be very closely aligned. In other words, your theory usually contains the variables that you're going to study, right? And this moves into the next point, where theories undergird the research questions and the instruments. The alignment of the theory and the instruments. This is another important thing for quantitative studies. Let's say you're studying emotional intelligence. Okay. Of course, you would want to use, that's going to be a construct, but of course, you want to use a theory of emotional intelligence. Okay. And you're going to need an instrument to measure emotional intelligence. Now, there's just several instruments, right? So you're going to pick the one that that aligns most closely with what you want to find out in your study. Okay, so then the theory that you want to use for your study and for your theoretical framework, it should align with the instrument. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're using Goleman. Goleman is somebody who was instrumental in popularizing emotional intelligence. So he has an instrument to study it. So you use Goleman's instrument. Okay, this is the instrument that, because it aligns with what I want to find out. Then you don't go and use Smith's theory of emotional intelligence. You see what I mean? Then you would use Goleman's theory. Right? If you use Goleman's instrument, you use Goleman's theory, because these instruments are developed from theoretical foundations. They're developed from theories. They don't just kind of emerge from nowhere. The researchers develop them based on theoretical information. So Goleman is going to have a theory of emotional intelligence that matches with his instrument. And people's theories of emotional intelligence, or whatever it happens to be, are going to be a little different, right? So Goleman may have, say, emotional intelligence has 4 components. Well, Smith might say, well, my version of emotional intelligence has 6. So you want to use Goleman's instrument, Goleman's theory, because his theory that has 4 components is going to match his instrument that contains the measure of 4 components. You see what I'm saying here? So that's real important to get your theory and your instrument to match, because usually, like I said, the theory will contain the variables or the components that will be measured. Okay, the theoretical framework. Again, we talked about this earlier. This is usually how theory comes into your study. There's a section called the theoretical framework. And some schools, it appears in different places for different schools. So use your template. If you haven't already obtained it yet, go ahead and obtain your school's template. If they don't have one, they usually do. Just get an example of an approved dissertation from your school that's close to what you're doing. Usually the theoretical framework a mention of it appears in chapter 1. You talk a little bit about it in chapter 1, and then a kind of a more fleshed out version appears in chapter 2. That's pretty typical, but schools are different. Sometimes it only appears in chapter 1, sometimes it only appears in chapter 2. But the idea of the theoretical framework is it's a section where you talk about, you know, the theory that you're going to use. It's going to act as, or theories, it could be more than one. And there's usually some specific components to this section, and I have them listed here. You want to talk a little bit about who developed the theory, the year, and what they developed it for, right? Again, we said theories are developed to explain things. What did they develop the theory to explain? Excuse me. You want to define the theory, right? You define the theory along with any associated components. Like we said, transformational leadership has 4 components. If you're studying those components as part of the theory, which you probably are, you want to define those components as well as the overall theory. Discuss what other researchers have used the theory for, right? So for theories to stick around and be useful, people have to use them, right? So it's important to discuss what other researchers have used the theory for. That will show your professors that, yeah, it's still about theory. People are still talking about it. People are still using it. And usually in the theoretical framework, you want to connect the theory to your what you're doing in your study. How does it connect to what you're doing? How does it inform what you're doing? And that's usually the kind of the basic parts of the theoretical framework. Okay. Let me see. I think there was something else I want to say here, but I'll come back to it if I remember. Okay, I see I have some questions here. We'll get to them when we finish. I'm sure you have a lot of questions as we go through. Okay. All right. Yeah, I think that's the theoretical framework. All right. The importance of using relevant theory. Okay. Yeah, theory must be oh, I'm sorry. Here is what I wanted to talk about the theoretical framework. I'm sorry. I just go back real quick. Sometimes it can be one theory, right? And my suggestion or recommendation for the theoretical framework is be as streamlined as possible, right? I see people pile up theories. I'm going to use this theory and this theory and this theory and this theory. You know, so they have 4 or 5 theories, and no, that's too many. Because you're going to have to explain them all. You're going to have to explain how they all connect to your study. You're going to have to talk about them all in chapter 5 when you talk about your findings. It gets to be quite a lot, and you probably don't need that many. If you can get away with one well suited theory, fine. Sometimes you may need 2. And that's fine too. Let's say you're going to study the connection between emotional intelligence and transformational leadership. Okay, then you would need those 2 theories. You would need a theory of emotional intelligence and a theory of transformational leadership. And together, those 2 theories would constitute your theoretical framework. Okay, and you would describe each one, how I have on the slide here. You would describe each one in this fashion and talk about them both working together as your theoretical framework. Okay. Using relevant theories. Yeah, it's got to be relevant to what you're studying, right? So, and this kind of goes back to the instrument argument, you know, that you know, your instruments and your theories need to match. Let's just look at an example. I mean, there's a lot of there's several, not a lot, but there's several theories of motivation, right? Let's say employee motivation. There's Herzberg has one, the 2-factor theory of motivation, and his theory of motivation consists of external components and internal components, right? There's things that are external that motivate people, money, perks. There's things that are intrinsic or internal that motivate people, a sense of satisfaction, a sense of a job well done, right? So if you use Herzberg's theory of motivation, you're going to probably be looking at those external and internal factors, right? There's other theories of motivation. There's one called expectancy theory, and this is based on people are motivated based on what they expect to get back from whatever it is they're doing. Okay, so that's got a different focus, right? So if you're, so this is what I'm talking about the relevance of theory. You know, you don't just kind of throw a dart at a dartboard and say, oh, I'm going to use Herzberg's theory of motivation. It depends on what you're studying. If you're studying those, you know, the external and internal factors that motivate people, use Herzberg. If you're studying something else, for example, like what people expect to get from something that motivates them, you would use something like expectancy theory as a theory of motivation. So that's what I mean by the relevance of the theories. It should, again, kind of match with what you're doing, with what you're the components or the variables you're studying. They shouldn't be afterthoughts, and I see this a lot. People have like most of their study figured out, but they don't have a theory, and then they have, I need to pick a theory. And, you know, at that point, yeah, I guess, you know, you do, you can't kind of go backwards, back in time or anything, but you should start thinking about the theory early when you're starting to, you know, look at your, what the research problem is. You're starting to develop research questions. Start looking at theories. What theory, you know, what theories help explain what it is you're studying, you know, and what theories kind of align to the things that you're looking at. So the theory should be kind of a part and parcel of when you're setting up your study. Okay, parts of the development of your research problem and research questions, right? Which is what I just said. And I think we're at the end. Okay, the summary theory is an essential component of the dissertation, again, because you know, it can lead to what you expect to find, right? The theory holds that this is true, therefore I expect to find this. It has explanatory capacity to explain things. Again, you know, data, you know, is just numbers without theories. It's, you know, numbers, statistics, they can tell you some things, but they can't explain what it actually means, right? And using relevant theory, I mean, is crucial, because sometimes your people won't even let you move forward until you have, you know, a theory that works. Okay. Okay, we're going to go to questions, and while we're at questions, I'm just going to leave this up, this slide up. This is the slide that tells you who we are. It has our contact information on it. So if you are interested in a free consultation to see if what we offer is right for you, feel free to contact us. Okay, now I see we have a lot of questions. I know this is kind of a quick and dirty treatment of theory, but as you can imagine, it gets really complex. So let's see what your questions are, see if I can help you out here. All right. You discuss, so the first question is, do you discuss expected hypotheses or your predictions when the theoretical framework section, chapter 1, after introducing discussion your theory? My program expects us to discuss theory in chapter 1. You can in the theoretical framework section, but usually expected hypotheses, hypotheses usually are part of the research questions. So like you may have the research question, and the research question will have hypotheses connected to it, right? So usually that's where you discuss the expected findings. Or sometimes some schools will have a section called expected findings. What do you expect based on what's in the theory? But usually the hypotheses are presented as part of the research questions. Is a theory and theorist different? In my work, I want to use a theorist in his explanation, but is that a theory? No, it's not a dumb question. The theorist is the person who theorizes, basically, and a theorist is a person who develops theories, right? So you will use the theory in your study, and it will be based on, you know, what this theorist developed, right? Okay, so in a sense, you're using both, but you're really using the theory, and you're going to refer to the theorist because the theorist is a person who developed the theory. Okay, what actually determines the statistical tools to use in research? Is it research questions or statistical test of assumptions? Yeah, this is kind of more of a methods question, and I am not a methods person. Sorry to say, I can't answer this one with any degree of certainty. But your statistical tools, I think you probably mean like analytical tools or like kind of the analyses you would run. Yeah, I can't answer that with any degree of certainty, but we do run methods seminars, webinars rather, methods webinars, and a methods person could answer that one for you, no sweat. Okay, what if there's no instrument that matches a theory example, theory of transformational leadership? If there's no instruments to measure what you want to measure, sometimes you can develop instruments. It's not recommended because it takes time, and it's a little advanced, and you got to get it kind of approved. I think you have to send it to some experts so they can kind of approve it if you need, if you want to create your own instrument or even adapt or modify an instrument. I think you need to run it by some experts so they can so they can kind of give you some insight on it and approve it. But you can, if there's nothing out there that measures what you want to measure, you can develop your own instrument. Again, it takes a little time and it requires some specific steps, but it's possible. I mean, you can do it. People do it. They develop their own instruments. Okay, we've got some more questions. Can you use your theory in your research questions? Can you test if a theory applies to your study? For example, I'm going to examine if communities of practice theory will improve mentoring practices for our students for. Okay, that's a good question. No. So the theory is kind of separate in that sense. So you wouldn't, in your research question, you wouldn't say, can communities of practice theory improve? Because the theory isn't a thing like that it's not something you can apply. It's ideas, right, is what I'm trying to say. So it's going to help kind of explain things, but you can't kind of do something. You can't take it and kind of do something with it. I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but no, it should not appear in your research questions that way. So like you're going to examine communities of practice theory, you're going to examine communities of practice will improve mentoring practices and prepare student teachers for teaching professions. You're going to do all that, just take the word theory out, right? And the community of practice theory is going to help you understand that. It's going to guide you, but even though you're testing the theory, the word theory doesn't appear in the research question. I know I kind of stumbled through that one, but I hope the end result is clear. Yeah, you don't need the actual theory word in the research question. Even though you're still kind of testing the theory, you're going to see if the theory is, applicable for what you're studying, but it doesn't get into the research question. Okay. Right now in my work, I'm writing my research proposal. That's different than a dissertation, correct? The dissertation is what I write up after I do my research. Is that right? Okay. The proposal is part of the dissertation. Usually the proposal is chapters 1 through 3. Now schools are different, so you have to take this with a little, that understanding. Usually the proposal is chapters 1 through 3, right? So that means this is what you're proposing to study. Chapter 1 is usually the introduction. Chapter 2 is usually the literature review, and chapter 3 is usually where you lay out your methodology. Okay, so you haven't conducted a study yet. That's what you're going to do. That's the what, the how and the why, right? What you're going to study, why you're going to study it, how you're going to study it, and what you're proposing to study. Then usually you go through something called institutional review board, where it has things like ethical considerations. You have to fill out forms, and you get cleared to collect your data. Then you collect your data, and then you present your, you analyze the data, you collect your data, you analyze it, and then you present your results, and usually in chapter 4, and you discuss your results, usually in chapter 5. And together, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that is your entire dissertation. And the 1 through 3 is the proposal. So I hope that clarifies things for that. Okay. Okay, yeah, and just related to that, I want to make the point, just as early as you can in the process, just find out what you need to find out about, what the proposal is, or what the expectations are, what they want you to do first, just the whole process. I mean, as much kind of front loading that you can do of information about what you need to do and what the dissertation and the proposal involves, and what's a proposal, what's a dissertation, I mean, get that stuff done, because it's going to help you. It's going to help you kind of conceive of the dissertation. It's going to help you kind of understand what's required of you. So get all that information down as soon as you can. Get the template for the requirements for the dissertation. Talk to your chair. I know sometimes people are kind of iffy about talking to the chair because their chairs intimidate them, or they think they're asking dumb questions, but that's what they're there for. They're there to help guide you through. But again, also inform yourself as much as you can too, and as early as possible, because you don't want to kind of go through guessing, right? I mean, it's a big deal to undergo a dissertation and to stick it out and see it through, and we know it's expensive, it costs money. So get as much information as you can, or as early on about it as you can, to help yourself out. Okay, I think I got some more questions here. Sorry, let's keep going. Okay. Yeah, this is a safe place to ask those questions. And again, for your chairs, chairs are different, but that's part of their job, is to help guide you through. But again, and there is an onus on you as well as a student to kind of be informed. So you don't want to go to them and ask them like everything, something you could look up yourself. But obviously, if it's something that's really tripping you up or you don't understand, and it's okay not to understand, because this is the first time you've done it, you're not going to understand everything. So it's okay to ask your chair things, to be like, hey, I don't know everything. Well, again, you haven't done it yet. You've never written a dissertation. So it's understandable that you know certain things. Okay. Can you compare theorists and theories? My research involves ethnography and other culture. Should I use a theory of the culture I'm studying in my own culture? That's a good question. And I don't have a solid answer for that, only because we don't see a lot of ethnographies, because ethnographies are, they're pretty involved. Not to say that's bad. They're actually good. They give you a lot of great. They're fantastic. They're a little advanced. They're a little involved. Sometimes they take the course over a lot of time. Like you're situated within another culture for months maybe, so they're pretty involved. As far as theories and ethnographies, you're going to have to ask your chair about this one, because my sense of ethnography and qualitative research in general is you don't want a theoretical overlay. In other words, you want the participants, the observations, you want those folks, you want their voices, right? You want what they think, you want their perceptions, you want their ideas. And so you don't want you don't want a theory kind of stomping on that, right? You want to hear what they say. So I would ask your chair about a theory in relation to ethnography specifically, whether they want a theory or not. And then whether they do, I mean, and do you need a theory of their culture and of your culture? I'm not sure about that. Again, ethnography is not one we see a lot, but I would. Those are legitimate questions for your chair. I mean, they could guide you how they see fit and what they think. But I wouldn't be intimidated or embarrassed at all to ask him about the role of theory in an ethnography. I think that's a perfectly legitimate question, and you could research it too and just see what the research says. Okay. Scoping review have theories. No, I don't think so. So scoping review is like a kind of a literature review. I don't think scoping reviews have theories. As far as I know, that's one you may want to look up. But as far as I know, no. Again, that's another one we don't see a lot of. But if you want to get back with me, I could look it up for you. And if you want to get back with me, I could answer that more completely. But I'm going to say they don't take theories. Okay, is there any other question? I think I got all the questions. Let me know if I missed one, but I think I got them all. Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you for attending, and I want to remind you that we present webinars on all different kinds of topics, different chapters, chapter 1, all the different chapters, different aspects of the chapters, different topics. So look at our webinar schedule on our website and see what we're presenting when, and feel free to join for another webinar. Again, we have resources on our website, blogs, chapter templates, all kinds of things. So we appreciate you showing up. And again, if you want to make a consult to see if what we offer is right for you, that would be great. But thank you, everybody. Have a great day.